Anyway. When a cannibal killer spots his next meal. Chat. Oh no.
When it was, and she never
Cannibal?
fought. She never did. And next thing you know, she's dead. And I'm like, well, this is great.
I could eat her.
I don't know, I got scared or nervous or I don't know.
Chicken
it was
breast.
juicy. It didn't taste like blood, though. I mean, it tasted like
I was just joking,
cardboard piece of steak.
Oh, thank you, cuz. Thank you, Mom. Thank you, Ma.
Because something else is in control.
What's the
When
most New York
detectives in
thing I
Coffee
could say?
County,
Thank you,
Tennessee,
Ma.
were called out to a remote property late
Bacon, egg,
one
and
summer
cheese,
evening to respond to a peculiar claim. They had no idea what they would soon uncover would reveal a horrific and gruesome crime.
Cap, no crime happened.
In a chilling turn of events, detectives were left to puzzle out
real
not
horror
only
shit,
if
bro.
someone had committed
Bros,
the crime,
wait, bros
but if
is
they'd
New
resorted
York
to
saying
cannibalism following a bizarre
really?
accident, or if in fact the stomach-churning act had been the fulfillment of a fantasy and an unhealthy obsession with serial
if you're
killers.
really this hungry, just
On the
get
evening
some
of June
McDonald's,
8th, 2014,
the meat they use
Jason
is probably
Walker
close
was
to
walking
human
across the yard of his rural Tennessee home when he heard a voice call his name from somewhere in the yard.
Nah, bro.
Jason turned, slightly impatient. It was 6:30 p.m. on a Sunday afternoon, and he was eager to get on with his preparations for the upcoming week.
If I'm in my front yard
Looking to the
and I hear
adjacent
someone say
yard,
my name
he saw his
in the dark,
37-year-old neighbor, Gregory Scott
Child,
Hale,
bruh.
standing at the fence and motioning for him to come
I
closer.
got my gun in my pocket, bro.
Jason sighs inwardly but approaches the short chain-link fence separating them anyway, having no idea that the conversation he was about to have would be one of the most horrifying of his life.
Oh, wait, so he doesn't die.
"Where's your backhoe?" Scott says by way of greeting. Jason replies that it isn't there, and he won't have it back for a few days.
Backhoe? Child,
Scott appears somewhat irritated by Jason's response, prompting him to ask why Scott is suddenly so interested in his backhoe. Scott, in response, makes a tasteless and gruesome joke about needing it to hide the evidence. Jason, nonplussed, stares at him in silence, prompting Scott to continue by pointing to the two 5-gallon buckets sitting just a few feet away, near Scott's burn pit. He explains that he tried burning everything in the burn pit, but it hadn't worked.
What the fuck's a
So
backhoe,
he figures he
though?
should just bury it all as fast as possible. Jason listens to this reasoning for the use of his backhoe before growing tired of his weird neighbor's stupid joke, and abruptly telling Scott he needs to go and that he'll talk to him later. 3 hours later at 9:30 p.m., Sheriff's Corporal Brad Roberts is sitting at the front desk of the Coffee County Sheriff's
If it involves
Department when a man
cannibalism, chat,
approaches,
this is gonna be
tense
crazy, bro.
and anxious to
I
speak
hate
with
being
someone
ill because the way I
immediately.
speak is I don't like
Corporal
it.
Roberts tells him to come back first thing tomorrow morning, but the man is insistent. It's Jason Walker, and he needs the police to listen to the joke his neighbor has just told him.
No, it
because
ain't,
the
bro.
longer
It
he's
ain't.
thought
It's
about
fucking
it, the
amazing,
less
bro.
it started feeling
Give
like
me
a
some
joke.
type shit, you know what I'm saying? That's the kind
At
of vibe
first, the
I'll do,
corporal
bro.
is
Give me some
skeptical,
type
as
shit.
it sounds ridiculous.
No, it is, chat. No, it is.
Violent
you know?
crime is almost unheard of in tiny Coffee County. But Jason is so adamant, so sure, that the deputy starts getting a sick feeling as well. He radios for 2 more officers, Deputy Rainey and criminal investigator Dendy, to accompany Jason back to his home to check out the story. Upon arriving at Jason's property, investigators made sure to come in through the back, driving without headlights so as not to alert anyone in the Scott household. Jason and the 2 officers walked through the darkness,
yes, I can.
shining their flashlights through the chain-link fence to illuminate the 2
I've had babies
5-gallon
before, bro.
buckets, their bright
Just
white
never really looked
plastic
after them,
almost
just left them,
glowing
you know,
in the
type
dim
shit.
light. C.I. Dendy picks up a garden hoe lying in Jason's grass and uses it to reach over the fence and snag the handle of the
is the
closest
body
bucket,
parts going to be in the
lifting it over
bucket?
to their
That's-
side. Grasping the lid, he peels it off to reveal the ghastly
that's what we do, the
contents,
body parts.
causing all 3 men to reel back in horror. It's a woman's severed head and hand. 3 days earlier, on July 6th,
Her head.
CCTV footage at Oak Liquor shows a woman entering the store at around 3:30, striding in confidently and heading to the back of the store before stopping and looking around hesitantly. This is Lisa Marie Hyder, and unbeknownst to everyone in the store, this is her last day alive.
So she died 3 days before.
She scans the back shelves, curling her long auburn ponytail around her fingers and adjusting her large black sunglasses before walking up to the man who has just passed her in the aisle. She isn't from here. She's only traveled up from where she lives in Dunlap, Tennessee to spend time with her ex-husband and two young children, the youngest of which is only a year old. Just before entering the store, Lisa had been on the phone with her ex-husband, trying to get a ride from where
how
she
does she
was to
meet
the house.
How does she meet the guy who kills her? That's what I'm
Huntsville
confused
and
about.
couldn't get to
Because
her
it
until
seems
he
like they have
was
no
finished.
business with each other, bro.
Lisa was
It seems
stuck
like she
where
has no business with him.
and she needed a ride, which is why police suspect she approached the man in the liquor store.
Okay.
As for why she chose the liquor store, according to her ex-husband, Lisa had been allegedly struggling recently with alcoholism, which is why they'd split up a few months earlier. Though she had struggled with a dependency to alcohol before, a recent devastating piece of news had kicked her problems into overdrive. Lisa had been diagnosed with ovarian cancer.
Damn!
And had only been
you mean
given
like they met
6
through
months
Tinder?
to live.
No. Damn,
Lisa
child.
was
She had
reportedly
like
beyond devastated by the news, drinking to cope and apparently end her life faster, spiraling emotionally and behaving more recklessly than she usually did. As she's talking to both the man and the cashier, she adjusts her sunglasses and for a brief moment, a black right eye is visible. How she received this particular injury is still
how did she get a
unknown,
black eye?
but it would pale in comparison to the injuries
she's
she
gonna
would
die
receive
that night,
later that night. Because the man she's speaking to and will eventually exit the liquor store with is Gregory Scott Hale.
Bro, what is with the name
Back
Gregory,
in Jason's
bro?
yard, C.I. Dendy and Deputy Rainey are radioing for backup, ordering for crime scene units to be deployed immediately and for search warrants to be written. As backup arrives, they head into the Scott residence to place Gregory Scott Hale under arrest, finding him sleeping on a couch in one of the filthy garages. Given what they've just discovered in the white buckets, the detectives were no doubt disturbed by the items Scott has decided to use to decorate this
What the fuck is this guy doing in his garage?
These items were
he a
later discovered to be
weirdo.
old Halloween props from a haunted attraction Scott had worked the previous year. Scott makes no attempt to resist, and when initially confronted, admits to being the one who killed the woman and had placed her limbs and head in the two buckets and had buried the rest of her in the burn pit nearby. Police take him in, and the following audio is the never-before-heard interview from that
Never-before-heard interview. Let's go. I love how he gets all this shit.
Licensed professional counselor.
I don't know how he gets all these never-before-heard, like...
You were talking to James out there at your house.
You have to choose a picture, bro. You have to actually send me a link.
I'm Chad Martin. I don't know if you remember me or not. I worked with your mom up here for many, many years.
Chad Parton working with Scott's mother would almost certainly imply she'd worked as a member of law enforcement.
You don't have to redeem it again, though. You don't have to redeem it again with your channel
father and
points.
son all being mere feet away asleep
find
in
the
the
link,
house
but it has to be a
while
JPEG.
Scott committed this murder. None of their statements or information have ever been released.
Anyway, I'm going to go over your rights again this time since we're up here in the office, okay? If you decide to answer any questions now without a lawyer present, you still have the right to stop answering at any time. You also have the right to stop answering at any time until you talk with a lawyer, okay? This isn't a mission, and it's just that we advised you of your rights, okay? It's right there, Scott.
Unless it's over.
Well, no, just getting
What do you mean, at least it's over, you weirdo?
Pretty good bed. How'd you meet this girl?
She came up to me at the liquor store and said, can I go home with you?
Here in town?
Yeah, at Oak.
What day was this?
Friday.
Is this the girl that you brought in to the house? I mean, your mom and dad saw her? Okay.
The home detectives are referring to would be that of Scott's mother and father.
All right, we're back.
37-year-old Scott had lost his job sometime prior
and
moved himself and his 14-year-old son into his parents' house. According to a narcissistic narrative spun by Scott, which he repeatedly mentions and embellishes throughout the interview, Lisa had apparently immediately found him so attractive that day. She immediately begged him to take her to his home and had decided she wanted to live with him in his mom's house before they had even left the liquor store.
There's no way a woman looked at him and was like, damn, he's so attractive,
leave
him, take me with you.
Garage where Scott kept all of his Halloween decorations, she apparently couldn't keep her clothes on, and Scott had to repeatedly ask her to put her shirt back on because his parents might return from picking up his son at any minute. Considering Lisa was only in Manchester that day to meet with her children, according to those who knew her, she adored more than life itself, it seems far more likely she simply asked Scott for a ride.
I don't think she fell in love with you and was
a fabrication.
trying to fuck you like crazy.
We'll never know for sure.
made what I was drinking on, and she got her a pint of 100 proof vodka, and you know, you can come hang out with me.
The regular
And
show
then she got in her
task.
head that she could just move in, and Mom ain't gonna let that happen, you know. We did have, it was consensual, and she wanted to be choked, and you know, us being drunk, and
Was this Friday night or was this
Friday night, it got carried away, and
She
I guess
met
I
you
strangled
that
her.
day.
What was y'all
Chad,
at?
what kind of women are in
Oh,
America that will
Yeah,
meet
you
you in a
know,
liquor
or-
store
Hands
and then
in a
just
shirt,
fuck you?
and the shirts in the
Because
garbage.
goddamn,
Yeah,
apparently
right.
that's a normal
At
thing
this
in
point
America.
in the interview, Scott once again begins boasting about how into him Lisa was, describing
he's
in
capping,
explicit
bro.
detail how much she wanted him, how turned on she was by his tattoos, not once mentioning his thoughts or feelings concerning her. It's unclear why Scott is so desperate to convince the detectives that Lisa was interested in him that he's making up
Yeah,
unconvincing
because
details.
he admitted to killing
He
her,
may
so
be
why is he
trying
trying
to
to
make
paint
sure he
himself
isn't
like...
on the hook for assault, or it's just the narcissistic side of his personality coming through. Either way, detectives just keep trying their best to keep him on track.
So you just show me how you done that. You
The
just,
thing I don't
And then I
understand
got
is, okay,
off-
you
and then
killed
I
her.
got off, I guess.
But at what
She
point
didn't.
do you
She's
eat
like,
her, bro?
keep choking me, and I kept on. I put a shirt around her neck and tightened it up. And, you know, she's supposed to.
He looks
you know,
ugly, Chad. That's what he looks like, bro. He looks
when
ugly
it-
as
you
fuck.
know, and she never fought. She never did. And
Looks
next thing you
ugly
know,
as
she's
hell.
dead. And I'm like,
I'm
this is
better looking
great.
than him, Chad.
And I guess I don't know, I got scared or nervous or I don't know.
Scott's account of strangulation is interesting because, according to the autopsy, the soft tissue of the neck above the fourth cervical vertebrae are examined. No soft tissue hemorrhage is seen. The hyoid bone and thyroid cartilage are intact. No contusions of the neck are
Whoa, that's
seen.
weird. Yeah, so obviously he lied.
While the autopsy does conclusively
better
rule
looking
that
than him,
Lisa's
Cap.
death was caused by homicidal violence,
I'm just joking.
no single cause is listed. There were no drugs other than alcohol in her system, and her lungs showed no evidence of smoke inhalation. So exactly how Scott ended her life,
Yeah, how
or
the
why
fuck
he
did
would
he
feel
kill
the
her?
need to lie about the exact manner of her death is unknown.
She wasn't even smoking
what
that
happened
day.
after that, Scott? I mean, you realized that she had passed. Did you try to give her CPR or anything? Did you try to resuscitate her or anything?
No, I don't know how to do CPR.
Okay.
CPI is
Smacked her
easy,
on the
Chad.
face a few
It's
times,
hard
No
physically.
response.
You know,
Like,
I opened up her eyes.
It makes you.
and
It takes a lot of
eyes were
stamina,
not
but it's
all the way
not that
shut.
hard.
Yeah.
I pulled up her eyelid. And
I don't think he
covered,
might.
you know,
Chad, he might be in
and
a
moved it.
psycho
I didn't-
hospital
her
because he
pupils didn't
ate
dilate
her.
or move
Chad,
or
like
nothing.
to eat
I've been
another human. I
wanting
think
to
you
go
go to
into
like a
a
mental
psychiatric
hospital, bro.
because I've already been having urges, and they've just been getting greater and greater. And I don't know if it's what, but I guess before I could get to one, so I've been watching a lot of serial killer stuff. I don't know if that was getting in my head. I've been having some crazy things happening at the house, like as far as
But to be fair, Chad,
unexplainable, supernatural,
Would you
whatever.
rather
suffer from
be in a
sleep
mental
paralysis,
hospital or in
not
jail?
sleep
Because
apnea,
I've heard
but
some crazy
paralysis.
shit
I'll-
about mental
I'll
hospitals,
come
like the way they
to,
treat you and
I'm
shit.
completely paralyzed and I can't move.
Despite Scott's best
Yeah, I
efforts
know,
to
bro, I
make
know,
himself
I
seem
know.
troubled or possibly
It is what it is.
insane,
At the end of the day, it's
what
night.
he's
type shit.
describing isn't a disorder, as it happens to people fairly regularly.
But you're conscious.
Yeah, and not this last time it happened, but the time before. Because I looked it up on the internet and I found out a lot of people that's claimed to be abducted by aliens suffer from it. I've also looked up it was a demon, and you know, anybody who knows my reputation knows I'm into the dark stuff. Ever this last
really,
time,
bro?
not this last time.
I
time
dropped
before
the
it
soap
happened,
low-key in
I've come
jail.
to,
Pause, bro.
I mean, it was a deep paralysis, and I could hear something
That's a
above me
crazy
breathing,
sentence, bro.
and something
I
slid my
dropped the
fan.
soap low-key.
The way I was laying on the bed, something slid my
Hey,
fan
yo.
all the way over, like where I look over laying down. Fan stayed running, and that's impossible. 'Cause that cord's barely long enough to plug in where it was.
Mm-hmm.
And ever since then, I've had a headache constant. It's been about 2.5 months.
2.5
And a
months,
beeping
yeah.
sound for about 2 weeks. I had an episode,
WK.
give or take a week ago,
Oh, yeah.
and a beeping sound.
I just
back
don't
in my
understand it
head.
because
And just ever since then, it's just, my thoughts ain't been right.
he literally did not
How long
resist.
you been out of rehab?
Like
This
he just
question posed by Detective Sherrill seemingly comes out of nowhere and isn't mentioned at any point in the interview before or after
yeah
now.
rehab. Why she mention
Since
that?
both of the
Why
detectives
did they
seem to
mention
know
that?
Scott from before this crime, it might just be prior knowledge.
Why would
I
you
left
eat?
it. I
Like,
didn't
that's
even
what.
stay
Chat. Honestly, the
24
only
hours
scenario
because
Come on, go
I can
down.
imagine myself eating
about
a
2
human
Februarys ago.
is survival, and they have already died, and I have no other food. That's the only
took an
scenario.
Adderall.
If they've already died, and I
Maybe
have
a
to do
week
it for
ago.
survival. That's the only
Pretty much
scenario
all you've been doing is drinking, man.
I can imagine, bro.
Drinking, smoking weed. I like to do Percocets and hydros, but I don't take those to get high on them. I've abused my body.
Bro,
so
that I was
much.
so hungry I
hurt.
could eat a human.
So once you realize that,
Child, he
and
like
she's
me for
there,
real.
you're
He a
like,
big boy.
okay. How long did you see it?
Big
you
belly.
think, or
You call anybody, you tell your parents, or
Mm-mm.
so what happened from there?
So
I
he
covered
legit
it up with a
just don't do
blanket on my
it.
love seat. You know,
This guy is a
pondering
weirdo, bro.
what to do, which I should have just called y'all. But another part of me was wanting, was like, you done went this far.
Kind of like me because I smoke.
And that's when
How does that
I pulled
make
her
any
off the love
sense?
seat, and I put her underneath the boat. Kinda
How?
put some
In what
stuff
way?
on top
In what way,
of her,
bro?
so in case mom or dad walked out there and looked
Right.
to see if she was there, because, I walked in and told mom, I was like, well, she's gone. She got mad because I wouldn't stand up to you and let her stand here, and she just took off walking. I waited till they went to sleep, and I guess I just let my twisted side take over. I do have
I
personality
let my
issues.
twisted side come.
It's
take
unknown
over.
what Scott's official diagnoses
Oh,
are.
that could be why.
But given his potential parasitic
If he
lifestyle
smokes weed,
and
chat,
the
it
seeming
could
lack of
induce
emotion here,
drug-induced
it would be
psychosis.
tempting to guess that he has
If
a
I'm not
form of
mistaken. I might be wrong
antisocial
about that.
personality disorder.
Weed's not really good
However,
for you,
without
chat, I ain't gonna
knowing
lie.
his full history, it's
Unless
hard
it's
to be
medicinal.
certain.
Unless it's
After
a
they went to
real
sleep, I
medical
pulled her
reason
out from
for it.
underneath the boat. And I was gazed
Like,
on her for
like
a
you have
minute.
anxiety,
I laid
depression,
down
stuff like
beside
that.
her
Like
and
weed can
just
help. But
touching.
after those things are gone, you don't need to
Still
take it. You
warm?
need to smoke anymore.
She was starting to lose it, and I forgot what the word is when the blood settles.
Rigor,
No, that's
Pulling.
stiffening.
pulling.
Yeah, and there's already, splotches. And she was starting to get a little rigor mortis, but not too bad. Her arms, they still kind of, when I drug her out, because I grabbed her by her ankles, and her arms still
The
kind
way
of,
he's describing
her
it,
legs
though,
was a
damn.
little stiff. In my head, I was thinking maybe she's just faking. There's still a part of me that was hoping.
maybe she just passed out or something.
Yeah. There's another knife in the garage. It's about this long, gray blade. Got a machete handle with duct tape on it. And I've worked at a slaughterhouse for 6 years, so I know where to go to, any deer hunter or anybody like that that's skinned, you know how to feel the joints. And
This is an
the
interesting
fuck?
justification he tries to make several times throughout the interview, trying to downplay his actions as a totally normal thing any deer hunter or slaughterhouse employee would be able to do. As though there are many people in these fields that would even
Yeah,
think
chat,
of
I'm
doing
a hunter,
something
so
this
I know how to
horrendous.
skin a human. Yes.
In reality, very few people, regardless of their profession or skill in butchering animals, would even know where to begin when faced with the task of applying their skills to the body
I don't
of a
think he
fellow
skinned her, but he
human
did. He
being.
did butcher her.
that was taking too long. But I started with her head. I cut her head off first.
Like he
Did
cut
you
her
put any
body up and
plastic
shit.
or anything down, or you just did it right there on the floor?
No, that floor was covered with blood.
Did you move the carpet out of there? I think there's green carpet or
And there's some blue carpet in there. I was going to pull it up, and my knife wasn't sharp enough
the pocket knife I got off the.
to do what I was wanting to do quickly. So I got the axe, cut off her hands, or at least I busted the bone with the axe, and then I used the knife and
What
I
the
cut off her
fuck?
feet.
Bear in
The way
mind
he's just
that up
calmly,
to this
like-
point, Scott has maintained that he had a woman die in his home accidentally, and panicking went about disposing of the body
Bro,
in the
the way he
quickest
just
way he knew
casually
how.
just-
This next part, however, reveals the true depth of his depravity, and is one of the most sickening and disgusting confessions we've ever heard.
And I was going to eat some of her, so I kind of cut off some of her, rump and part of her back strap.
Backstrap is a term used by hunters to describe the long strip of muscle that runs
That is
parallel to the animal's
disgusting, bro.
spine,
What a weirdo.
and is a particularly prized cut of meat in big game for being the most tender and flavorful, because it isn't a muscle often used by four-legged animals. Because human beings are not four-legged game
Yeah, I don't
animals
think he-
and
I don't
therefore
think-
cannot be split into similar cuts of meat.
I don't think he actually
There's no
tried
telling
to. I
what
don't think he actually
muscles
tried
Scott
the meat.
actually
I think he
tried
just
hacking
stored
out
it
of
in like a
Lisa's
fridge or
body.
something.
But just the fact he thought of doing this at all and
Yeah.
goes on to use these terms to describe her
I
body
think he didn't actually
shows
eat
how
her. He was
little
close
regard
to it,
he
though.
holds for her and the life he took. Detectives are
But he's definitely not going to
understandably
try to get out
thrown
now.
by
He's
this.
definitely not going to try to get out now.
Did you cut her backstrap out?
Part of it.
Part of it. Did you keep any of it?
It's all in those buckets.
This is interesting because, according to the autopsy,
Well,
only
pictures,
the
yeah.
lower arms, legs, hands, feet, and head were present in the buckets when collected by police. No back strap was found, though again, what exactly Scott is referring to is unknown. But his words flow too smoothly here compared to his other lies, so it seems that regardless of what he managed to actually do, he viewed Lisa
This
as
gonna sound
little
weird,
more
but
than
what
an
part of a
animal to be
human would you
slaughtered.
eat if you
He
had to
went out
eat
of
one
his way
part?
to cut out what he thought
I'd
would
probably
be
do
the
like-
tastiest portions of her.
The body's underneath the fire pit.
What about the legs? Are they in the buckets or in the fire pit?
Both.
You got a refrigerator in your
Chest?
house in the garage?
Like breasts.
Mm.
Oh, that sounds weird. That's a
No.
weird question. My bad.
Now I
That's a weird
flipped her
question.
over, and I cut up her belly, and reached up and cut her heart out.
What'd you do with it?
I slung it.
Was it out in the yard somewhere?
Did you sling it straight from the garage or to the left?
No,
or
it's
to the
like-
left field?
Like where those buckets are, and there's a fence.
Mm-hmm.
I kind of just, because
Just
Mom was coming out, and
Yeah.
So you just sort of slung it across the driveway?
she kept saying, but Mom and Dad, I was noticing them talking about what's Clyde keep smelling, what's Clyde keep smelling.
Clyde seems to be the family dog,
The family
though this
dog,
isn't
bro.
confirmed.
And this was Friday night?
And this was today. And I went and built a fire, and I tried to burn her remains, and I was going to bury the heads.
Yeah,
or the
Chad,
head
bones
and
don't
the other
burn, do
body
they?
parts.
Bones don't burn.
So
So,
the pieces that you cut, the back strap and whatnot, you went ahead and burnt them, or are they in a bucket too?
They're in the bucket.
I
They're
can't
in
press that
buckets.
link, bro.
But you never did. You
It's
never
not a
did
link.
fry any of her up or cook any of her
was,
or
bro.
nothing or eat her. Did you ever eat any of it?
Yeah.
Oh,
You
he
did. What
did
part
eat
did you
her
eat?
with.
Piece of meat off the leg that while she was in the fire.
While it was cooking? How big a piece you think it was? Just, okay, about the size of an egg.
Yeah.
Was it cooked up pretty good, or was it still semi-raw?
Why is
It
bro
was
asking?
juicy. It didn't taste like
It was
blood,
medium
though. I mean,
rare.
It tasted like a charbroiled piece of steak.
Similarly to how Scott was trying to convince the detectives of Lisa's burning passion for him, he also seems to be trying to convince them that what he did wasn't despicable or utterly insane.
Tastes like a
because she
piece of
just
steak.
tasted
It's
like
crazy.
steak.
Well, let me ask you this: before you cut her up, or any time during you cut her up, did you drink any of her blood, or did you have sex with her again?
No.
Okay. So basically, what you done, you just got busy.
Wait, do
trying to
people have
dispose of her.
That's crazy.
Did you take any other organs out? Just the heart? Okay.
If you really wasn't sure why she was dead, why didn't you constantly come up there and check on her?
Because something else is in control.
So in a way, you wanted her to be dead?
Try. He has a dark passenger. He got an evil side to him. Something
I
else
don't
was in
know what
control.
was going on in my head.
It's curious that
Bro.
Scott keeps mentioning how
What a
he wasn't
weirdo.
in control of his actions while at the same time providing excruciating detail on exactly what those actions were, and at times, exactly why he did them. It's possible that he may be trying to set up a
His
half-hearted
forehead
attempt
is
at
massive, by the way, chat. Look at that fucking big ass forehead, bro.
sanity defense throughout the interview, but isn't really sure how to go about it.
Had she made you mad or anything at night?
Not really. She just irritated me a little bit.
It's clear that detectives are trying to find some possible motive for this murder and the horrific acts that swiftly followed, as it seems unlikely that it was simply an accident. As it turns out, the next part may reveal a bit of what Scott's true motivation might be.
I know me and you talked about this last time, but I talked to you after Tales. I can't remember if you was telling me that you was reading books about serial killers or if it was the movies you was telling me about.
I was
Wasn't you reading
Damn.
books at one time?
I was just studying about them, just watching.
Chat, I know a lot of
biographies.
women. Chat, I know a lot of women love like crime and serial killers and shit.
No, I was doing
like the
biographies,
documentaries and
the
that.
real stories.
But I
And
think
I
with
looked
men
up
it's
on the
different. If a
internet,
man likes that
Jeffrey
kind of stuff, I
Dahmer
think it's different,
Yeah,
bro.
my favorite
I don't
one is
know.
Richard Ramirez.
Ramirez, was he the one that...
I don't know,
Yeah,
chat. It's
Night
just a bit
Stalker.
different, you know what I mean?
Richard Ramirez, aka the Night Stalker, was an American serial killer who terrorized the Southern California region in the mid-80s, killing at least 13 people and assaulting countless others. According to some articles on this case, Scott reportedly wrote on his Facebook page on the day of Ramirez's death, "R.I.P. Night Stalker. Wish I could have met you." However,
weirdo.
this couldn't be verified.
The Night Stalker.
Nah, he probably wrote some weird
John
shit like that,
Wayne
bro.
Gacy or-
He probably
I've
wrote
read
some
about
weird,
Gacy.
yeah.
I mean, I got on bad serial killer kick a few years back, and that's all I put on my Facebook was just videos, like, because I don't listen to exactly what you call mainstream music.
I listen to
And, you know,
satanic
I find
music. Yeah, 'cause
videos
you're a
of
weirdo.
serial killers.
What the fuck is this, bro? That's
you know,
that
by
gotta be
different bands
racist.
where they're
That gotta be
playing,
blackface,
you
bro.
know, this video footage of
Why
different
red?
killers. And I told her, I was like, I'm
Is that just tape,
wanting
though?
to check into a psychiatric hospital. I'm just thinking about it too much.
This admission is very interesting, as it could suggest that Scott had in fact fantasized about committing the same types of depraved acts as the serial killers he had an admittedly unhealthy obsession with, which may explain why he was so quick to start destroying
Just
Lisa's
pulling
body
her
so
apart,
soon
yeah, that
after her
makes sense, Chad,
supposedly
that makes
accidental
sense, yeah.
demise. Detectives seem to start thinking along the same lines, as their next few questions focus on the ideas presented by the idea Scott may have been acting out serial killer fantasies.
Well, the way he talks about the serial killers, it makes sense, Chad. Chad, what's your favorite serial
I'll be
killer?
there a day or two
Okay,
or
that's a crazy
three.
question. I'm
You're
sorry.
fine going on.
That's a crazy
Yeah.
question. I'm sorry,
Is
man.
this the only person
My
that you've
man.
ever heard
Do
like
not
that?
answer that.
Yes.
Do not answer that, Chad.
Doing anything else? Dogs?
It's okay,
cats,
Reefy
anything?
Khan.
And I'm an animal lover.
I thought you had a dog up there at one time.
Yeah. I mean, I worked in a slaughterhouse, but
Where'd you
Chat.
work out, Champions?
Chat, he's an
worked there
animal
on and off for
lover.
6 years.
He's
For
an
Charlie
animal
and them out
lover.
there.
However,
We had a bad falling out.
he
So,
killed a woman.
When you were having
Nah,
her
Chat,
and
not
she wanted you
serial,
to start
bruh.
choking her
Serial
out, what was your
killer.
thoughts?
But it's
What was
okay,
going
I'll
through
take
your head
cereal.
then?
My
You
favorite
thinking
cereal,
this is
Chat,
my
and
opportunity,
there's
I'm
no
just gonna
debate
choke
about
her
this.
out
There's
and
no
live out one of
debate.
my fantasies,
There's
or
no debate, Chat.
Pretty
Cinnamon
much.
Toast Crunch, best
Opportunity was
cereal
knocking,
ever.
wasn't it?
No debate.
Yeah.
Not a single debate.
You know what? We was gonna go to a different damn liquor store too, and we was right there about to pull in. She goes, "Wait." She goes, "You can't go to Oak, can you? You owe that woman money." I was like, "No, I paid her off." So she just went all the way to Oak Liquor instead of stopping at West Mead.
Maybe it was fate. Who knows?
This last statement seems to be Detective Parton taking a weak stab at one of the principles of the Reed technique, perhaps presenting an alternative theory to get Scott to
Yeah,
admit to
Chad,
more details because the alternative makes the crime
Bro,
sound
if you can
not
find
that
the images
bad.
of JPEG, next
It's
time,
at this
bro, hell
point
yeah.
that the interview deviates from Lisa's cold-blooded murder
To
and takes a
munch it.
rambling turn into Scott's personal life,
Personal life.
starting with the other
I bet
failed
he had no
relationships with
bitches,
women
bruh.
he's had in the past and the misdemeanor
Yeah.
charge for possession of drug paraphernalia that was still pending at the time of the murder. None of which, of course, were ever his fault.
Yeah, because he's a narcissist.
It's interesting to note that he blames the paraphernalia charge entirely on the woman he was seeing at the time, saying,
Yeah, Chad, that's a big ass
misdemeanor
following, bro. I can't
paraphernalia.
even lie.
And me and this girl hooked up on a blind date. She was from Winchester. I couldn't get her to leave. Somebody called the police or something and said that I was dealing drugs and all this. And I ain't no drug dealer. You know, I'm a user.
this seems to be
I'm
a
no
running
drug dealer,
theme
I'm
in
a
Scott's
user. That's
life,
a sad
that
sentence,
he never does
bro.
anything wrong, the bad things that happen to him are never his fault, and that he's so irresistible to crazy women, they all
Chad, he
immediately want
legit
to live
thinks
with him.
he's him. Like,
The
he's got
detectives offer
aura.
no
No, you don't,
comment
bro.
on this,
He thinks he's
instead trying to
irresistible
steer
to
Scott
women.
back to the matter of Lisa, and while Scott does answer their questions, it's now only between stories about himself, random details on his life, or any random thought that seems to cross his mind.
I don't read on here about serial killers and stuff like that. Was you thinking about keeping any of your body parts at all?
It crossed my mind. And I thought about keeping her skull because, you know, I'm all the time messing with masks and Halloween decorations, stuff like that. And I was like, you know.
For those of you keeping track, Scott is now referred to the victim as a slaughtered animal
Yeah, he's
and
completely
is now comparing her
dehumanized
to a
her, Chad.
Halloween
He's
decoration,
completely dehumanized
further
the
indicating
victim.
how little regard he had
Yeah.
for Lisa Hyder's life. Eventually, the exhausted detectives wrap up the nearly 3-hour interview
3
by reading
hours?
Scott's overwrought confession back to him, and he signs it. Gregory Scott Hale pleaded guilty to first-degree murder on January 15, 2015.
2015.
And though on the
wow.
surface this may seem as though he was finally taking responsibility for his actions, in recent years he claims he was charged and sentenced unjustly on the grounds of religious
What?
persecution. The religion in question implied to be Satanism.
Chad, Satanism isn't a religion. How can you worship someone that was bitch slapped by God?
However,
Imagine
there's
following
no
Satan.
concrete evidence that Gregory
Pussies, bro.
Scott Hale was a practicing theistic or atheistic Satanist, or were there any signs of satanic literature, paraphernalia, or religious
Well, then
symbolism
how could he
found
claim to be a
anywhere near the crime
How
scene?
could,
Aside from a crudely rendered Leviathan cross scribbled on a sheet of notebook paper on a dusty desk. Some point to one Leviathan cross as a sign that Scott was a practicing Satanist. However, on this same desk, in a place of equal prominence, there was a Star Trek fan collective Borg DVD.
Borg.
But few have pointed to this as evidence that he worshipped the Borg Queen. Scott never mentioned Satanism or any other alternative belief systems in his interview.
That's a crazy
While
profile
a
pic.
handful of the news articles written after his arrest briefly
That's a
bring up
crazy
Satanism as
fit.
a possible motive, it appears they're basing the assumption that Scott worshipped the devil on his love of metal music, the album covers of which adorn his Facebook page, and dark comedy. Scott also goes on to complain that all of the articles only include the bad things about him.
Well, yeah, you
allegedly
ate a
writing,
woman, bro.
"Y'all only put up the bad. I've been told by a couple of people who really know me and who wrote positive things about me, or said positive things,
Bro,
and
it's
for
not
some
drippy,
reason
exactly.
that never gets published. But people who don't really know me that speaks only diluted BS that is secondhand BS.
Let me
and
know how
bad
much he
about
got
me.
in prison. How long
Y'all
he's in
wanna
prison
smear
for?
that all over
If
the
this
paper.
motherfucker is in prison less than
Regardless,
20
the
years,
family of Lisa Marie Hyder
less
can
than 20
rest
years, I'm
assured
pissed.
that the man who brutally murdered and dismembered this young mother of 6 will rot in prison for the rest of his
They'll be
life.
the rest of his life. As he should, bro. As he should. Damn. Damn. Hey, it's clear you like this video. There's one right here as well. Why don't you watch this one too? Come on, watch it. Press it, bro.
Yo, they still ain't pressed the
Well, that's
video.
what I'm saying. They ain't pressing it, bro.